I'll have a lot for you, a lot of information, because I've attended a very big meeting between the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Ministry of the Interior, Ministry of Industry and Trade, Labor Office, and Ministry of Labor and Social Affairs. And because we at Move to Prague, we try to always like catch up and be on top of all the information, but immigration is a very like complex topic. It's not just about the Immigration Act and like foreigners, but it's also about like employment, about studies, and all these laws are interconnected. So there are plenty of changes like in all the laws, and there are also plenty of changes like in the procedures inside of the ministry. So it's not always that the law changes, but there are things that change inside of the ministries, how they operate. And I attended a very long meeting recently last week. So I just took a week to go through all the notes and everything. And I'm now presenting you with all the latest information we've got. There will be a couple different topics. It will be very wide and very interesting. But the four, maybe to kind of make you curious, there will be four very interesting topics. First, scams, because we've discussed that with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs especially. So there is something about scams. I'll share that. Very important thing about insurance for employed people or unemployed at that point. But there is one important news there as well. So if you are under an employee card and then you get unemployed, there is one like super interesting news. Then I'll have some interesting facts from all the different ministries, like some procedures or something that happening. For example, a suicidal course for one of the nationalities. I'll get back to it. And the integration course, integration and adaptation course. You haven't heard about it for a long time, but now you'll be hearing about it more again. So I'll cover all these topics. In the thumbnail, it says 10 changes or 10 news or whatever. It will be way more, but bear with me. There's some very interesting. Originally, I was thinking about dividing it like according to the ministries, like Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Ministry of the Interior, whatever. I will not do that because those are anyway like complex changes or complex news, so they interlink with other laws as well. So I'll just go one by one. So first of all, just an interesting information, how long it on average takes to approve some visas or residence permits. Information from the Ministry of the Interior. Because it's kind of always the fight, like people or like foreigners or us as agencies, we always complain that it takes too long to get anything approved, that you have to wait like for 6 months before you can get your employee card or a business visa, whatever. Then the ministry always says, no, we are super fast, and we always kind of fight like this. So here are two information they shared about employee cards that go through one of the programs for employers. So if it's the highly qualified employee, they say the average approval time is 28 days, which is way below the 60 to 90, which is the official timeline. If you go through the key personal and I don't know, like the key personal program, then the average approval time is 51 days. So it's still below the legal minimum. Of course, they only share these numbers, which are kind of out of context because it's just the approval time. So how long the ministry has your documents before they make the decision. It does not really consider how much time it took you to collect all the documents and get enrolled into the program. And it does not also include like what happens after approval, so the biometrics, and that you need to book an appointment for that, and that it takes like 3 weeks just to print out the residence card. So these are kind of like random numbers, but it's good to know that, or good to know these. So 28 days is pretty good approval time. 51 days is not really that good, but it's still within the legal deadline. So I wish that it would be the same for all the visas and residence permits, but we're not there yet. Now, just briefly, we don't work with Ukrainians much because the government actually has been taking good care of them, like of all immigration matters. But there will be two news connected to Ukrainians. So if you're interested in this topic, this is the first one, and then I'll get back to another one later. So first one is that if you're a Ukrainian living in the Czech Republic under the tolerance of stay, whatever. My English sucks. I need to get more coffee into the brain. But the tolerance visa, not the temporary protection, that's different. But if you have the tolerance visa, or if you have a long-term visa or long-term residence permit in some other country, then you can again submit employee card applications in Ukraine. I've known about this for months, but it was always kind of weird for me, because if you're a man and you go back to the Ukraine where you have to apply at the Czech embassy, then you will never be able to leave Ukraine, because then you will go to the war. And similarly with women, that's a bit different, but kind of very difficult to get there as well. But the good thing is that the ministry, if you request it, then the embassy does not require your physical presence. So you actually don't need to go to Ukraine. There is some procedure you need to follow, so you need to specifically request it. You need to pay an application fee just for this request. But then, in most cases, they allow you to submit the application just by mailing. You don't have to go back to Ukraine. So that's actually a great thing that shows that someone was actually thinking about the situation. Not they just introduced something stupid, as they sometimes do, but they were actually thinking. And maybe one more thing that's not news, but it was a great thing for me to understand, that the ministry is actually doing, or all the ministries are actually doing good things. That someone really started thinking about like how foreigners are interconnected, not just like with the immigration law, but other laws and other ministries, and they're actually making changes that make sense, which is great. And I would have never guessed that I will ever say this sentence, but actually the ministry is doing pretty good work, and all of the ministries, so I'm shouting out to them. Now, digital nomad applications, I've done a separate video about that, but it's one of the changes, so I want to mention that as well. So there are 4 new countries in the digital nomad program, including Mexico and Brazil. And the digital nomad program is not only for IT professions, but it's also for marketing professions now. Then just one statistics. So you know the governmental programs for economical migration, like for business visas and employee cards, like the highly qualified employee, key person, all that. So there were, and the quotas at embassies, that at some embassy you cannot submit more than 70 applications a year, stuff like that. So through these programs, more than 10,000 people came to the Czech Republic last year, which is actually pretty good number. It's still a very small amount of the total number, but it's good because it shows that the programs are actually used and they actually work. So 10,300 is the number, and I was pretty surprised that that's a pretty good number. Now there is a special program. Anyway, it's a very weird program, but there is a special program for Indonesian students. So if you know any Indonesian students, there is a special program how they can kind of easily get into the Czech Republic. It's not for all the students in general, it's for like polytechnical students, and only if they have companies in the Czech Republic that they want to bring like high number of Indonesians. But there is a special program specifically tailored for Indonesia, which is kind of interesting. Very weird, very weird. It's like very specific. It's just Indonesia, and it's like polytechnical schools, but it's there. Now, very important thing, more for employers. So maybe share it with your HR or share it with your accountants or whoever you know, because this is super important if you have an employee card or if you're willing to apply for one. And that is that the job advertisements that the companies must do when they want to hire employees for non-EU countries are now automatically deleted from the system, from the database of the labor office after 6 months if they are not used. So you need to be very careful also when you're changing employers, because what can happen is that you submit the change of employer to the ministry, but before they make the decision, the vacancy number will no longer be active, Hence, your change of employer will not be approved, and hence your employee card will be cancelled. You will have to leave in the extreme cases. So be very careful about that and share this information with your HR, accountants, with your companies. The vacancy number disappears after 6 months of posting to the labor office if not used. Well, then now the second thing about Ukrainians, then we'll get to some more interesting stuff. Like now we're getting to the scams and to the rest I mentioned in the beginning. But one more thing about Ukrainians is that they will be able to apply for a special type of residence permit, which will be for 5 years. It will have free access to the Czech labor market. You will be able to apply for a permanent residence permit for that. And all this will be done electronically. So they will need to go to the Ministry of the Interior, but just at the end of the process, basically to give them marriage certificates and birth certificates and take their fingerprints. So that's kind of the first step towards the complete digitalization that the ministry is promising. And the original idea was to have it done by 2030, which might not work, but for Ukrainians, this is a special thing now. And they will be applying for this residence permit completely electronically from September until December this year. I could tell you more. There is it's a very big topic, but since Ukrainians are not our main clients, I will not be going into details. But if you have any questions about that, get in touch. We'll be happy to explain. Now, there have been also very many changes, or like just the differences between the dual and non-dual employee card. There are different rules, and that's because the standard employee card, the the dual employee card is governed by the EU law, but the non-dual employee card for people with free access to the labor market, that's just a Czech thing. And those are that's super important because those are two completely different laws with different rules. And one of the rules, I'm not sure if I have it here right away or not, but there are two super important things. First, if you have a standard employee card, so the dual employee card, and you get unemployed, your health insurance is automatically covered by the government. So if you get unemployed, you don't have to buy the commercial insurance for the 2 months or the period you will be unemployed, but you will be automatically covered by the public system, by the government. But you need to go to your insurance company, so VZP, OZP, or whatever you're using, and you need to tell them that you're unemployed, and they have to register you there. Not sure that all the people at all the branches will know that. Maybe no one will know, and they will try to not register you. But officially, that's the new rule, that if you have a dual employee card, a standard employee card, and you get unemployed, your health insurance is covered by the government or by the state, by the country, by whatever, Czech Republic. One thing. Second thing is that's just a future change. But for example, if you have a blue card now, then you can be unemployed for a longer period of time, for up to 6 months. But it depends on how long have you been in the Czech Republic. If less than 2 years or more than 2 years. Now for the standard employee card, it's just 60 days. More for non-dual employee card, but still kind of limited. But there should be a change coming where the blue card and employee card rules will be the same. So you will be potentially could be unemployed for up to 6 months and still keep your employee card. That's not active yet, but that was one of the topics we discussed, and that's one of the changes that should be coming in the near future, which would be amazing in general. Question is how people will use it, abuse it, whatever. The ministry might change it later, but this is one of the great news there. Now, interesting facts, some of the interesting facts. For example, the Czech, or maybe let me ask you, where do you think is the biggest consular section of Czech embassy? Meaning the visa section, basically. Which country? It's in the Philippines, because the embassy has been reconstructed, so it's new now, and they have the biggest department like the consular department, so the visa department of all the Czech embassies in the world. So Philippines, the biggest. So shout out to my Filipino followers and to our Filipino clients. You have the biggest visa department at the Czech embassy from all the Czech embassies in the world. Two interesting facts as well are that in Manila, so the Philippines and Ulaanbaatar, employee card applications are submitted through VFS. So not through the embassies, but through VFS, which is very, very unusual because VFS is usually just used for short-term visas, not for any long-term options, not for like employee cards, but in the Philippines and in Ulaanbaatar, so in Manila and in Ulaanbaatar, then those are submitted through the VFS, which is very kind of, I don't know, it might not be that interesting for you or shocking for you, but for me that was a very big revelation because that's something that should not be like that, but it is. So that's very important, very interesting for me. Then, now, very important thing, guys. Those of you who go through the programs for employers, the economic migration, there are statistics of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, of embassies. In India and the Philippines, 50 to 70% of applications are either incomplete or people do not even show up for their appointments. This is like crazy. I cannot imagine that. And guys, like if you're from India, if you're from the Philippines, please make sure that this is not your case because this could potentially screw up the whole system for everyone. Like 50 to 70% of people who come to the embassy to submit applications don't have all the documents, which can never happen if you go through us, or like once in 10 years as the first, a very famous quote from a Czech movie would say, but that's completely like, that's nonsense, guys. Like either don't show up at all, that's like one of the biggest concerns of the embassies, or 50 to 70% of applications are not complete. And that's like, first of all, they will hate you. They will hate you all because they have to keep the file there. They need to write a letter for you. They need to wait for you. They need to keep all your documents there. They cannot send it to the Czech Republic for the decision-making process. So they will hate you. That's one thing. Second thing is it very much delays the process and it can also lead to immediate like cancellation of your application. So you've waited like 6 months to get an appointment and then like because you didn't bring a document, then you will not be able even to apply. That's like just very bad. So guys, either hire someone who can help you with that or just like don't go through the process if you don't do it properly. It might sound harsh, but imagine that you work at the embassy and 70% of people who come there cannot apply. They will get pissed at some point and they will like ban everyone from India and Philippines to ever apply for visas because 70% of people like don't want it anyway because they come unprepared. So like two things. What is the biggest problem in India? There are two things. First is the criminal check, the PCC, that doesn't have either the apostille or not official translation. And similar situation is with primary school diploma. The people don't bring it and either don't bring it at all or it doesn't have an apostille or it's not officially translated into Czech. And this is also kind of a stupid mistake of your employer or whoever is taking care of your application because that's easily avoidable if you just mention in the job advertisement that you don't require any education instead of mentioning that you require primary school education. So be very careful, guys, about this. From the Philippines, from India, if you go to the embassy, make sure that you have everything like 100% correct. Otherwise, what can happen is that no one from India, no one from the Philippines will ever be able to apply for visas again because 70% is just too much. Now, one thing in Mongolia that's a very interesting fact, that's the suicidal training, and that's people from Mongolia who got approved an employee card and are coming to the Czech Republic, they have to go through a mandatory training about Czech culture, about working rights, all that, how it all works here, because the ministry said that there was a high amount of people who committed suicide who came from Mongolia to the Czech Republic to work because of the cultural differences and everything, and the distance from family members, all that. So they do this course to prepare people from Mongolia for what will be happening here, how the Czech Republic works, all that, to actually limit the amount of suicides that people from Mongolia commit here, which is a pretty good thing. In fact, first of all, it's a pretty bad thing that it's happening, that people are committing suicides because they are unhappy in the Czech Republic, but very good thing how the Ministry of Foreign Affairs reacted to this, and that they created this kind of program that like prepares people for that. This is one of the things where I was really amazed, because that really shows that they care, which is something I wasn't used to from the ministries in the past. That's one thing. Now the scam part. I say it every time when I do a live stream, whatever the topic is, and especially the open Q&As. I say it every time that don't apply for seasonal visa, because it's the biggest scam ever. And the people who provide like seasonal work permits, they're just in most cases scammers. I'm not saying everyone, but a lot of them are, because either they don't know how it works, or they do know and they still do it. Either way, the biggest problem is that usually even cannot apply for anything, or if you apply, you get denied for various reasons. And this was just like my kind of opinion or my experience or whatever, but this was actually confirmed by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs that there is a huge amount of scammers in India that provide like seasonal work permits and sell it to people for like thousands of euros or whatever, and you can never actually get the seasonal work visa. So guys, one more time, if you don't believe me personally, take it from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Don't apply for seasonal visas. Don't pay anyone for seasonal work permits, because very likely you will never get here. It's like 95% of cases you will never get here. Of course, you can be the 5%, but pretty unlikely. And even if you get here, you cannot switch to anything else. They often tell you, the scammers tell you that you can switch to an employee card, blah, blah, blah. You can stay here, blah, blah, blah. Not true. The only thing you could potentially switch to is a blue card, but hard to imagine that if you come here to pick like apples with the basic minimum salary, that you will be able to find a job like in IT and like get 70,000 crowns salary for a blue card. So scammers, seasonal work visa, seasonal work permit, don't do that. Public insurance, if you're unemployed, I talked about it a couple of minutes ago. Now, test of the labor market. As you know, how the employee cards work is that if a Czech employer wants to employ a non-EU citizen, they first need to advertise the position to the labor office, and there is something called a test of the labor market, which means that Czech citizens and EU citizens have the right to apply for the position first, and only if no one gets the position gets a special number, the vacancy number, and then you can apply for an employee card. For years and years, it used to be the way that the test of the labor market was 30 days. So they had to post the position, and then you had to wait 30 days to get the number. Then it was shortened to 10 days, and now it's 0. So now there is no test of the labor market. You still need to advertise the position, or your employer must do that, but they don't have to wait for any period of time. It's just like 0 days. As soon as it appears online, you can use the number. One thing is that it has some rules, and if the unemployment rate goes above some percentage, it will kind of automatically restart the test of the labor market. So it's not like a permanent thing. It's also not like that the ministry will decide when. There is like a hard number, 7%, if the unemployment rate is above that, automatically restarts the test of the labor market. In some parts of the Czech Republic where the unemployment rate is generally higher, then the percentage is lower. So it can actually restart sooner and even with lower unemployment rate. So again, that's any information for your HR or for your companies, for your employers. Share it with them. If they have any questions, they can get in touch with us or go to our other website, zaměstnávání-cizinců.cz, like whenever I'll share the link somewhere, and read about that because that's super important as well. And now the last thing here is the integration and adaptation course. That's been in effect for years now. I don't remember how long, like 6 years or something. And what it basically means is that anytime you get a new residence permit, so it can be a new employee card or it can be like an extension, you have to go officially through the integration and adaptation course, which is like 4 hours where they tell you how the post office works and like what are your rights as an employee and how it all works, which is good. I'm not mocking it. It's just kind of some parts of it are a bit weird, but I think it's a good thing. But it was introduced like I think right before COVID. So the first year it was like the ministry was very active about that. They were giving leaflets to everyone saying you have to do this, these are the steps, blah blah blah. Then they kind of stopped because it wasn't a priority, it wasn't that important, and now they're starting with that again. And if you don't go through the integration and adaptation course, you can pay up to 10,000 crowns fine for not doing it within the first year after you got the residence permit. So make sure you go through it. The rules about like who is exempt from that are a bit confusing, but if you have any questions, get in touch and we'll be happy to tell you if you have to do it or not. And if you're not sure, do it anyway. That will not hurt. You will meet the obligations, plus you might actually find out something useful and interesting. So definitely do it regardless. Wow, that's a half an hour of like immigration and employment news. I was trying to be very brief about all the news. I could talk for hours about this, but I was trying to be very brief because again I have to run somewhere and I didn't want to bore you that much. But these were like all the recent changes and updates and statistics and interesting facts and scams and everything. So hopefully this was useful. Guys, if it was, comment, share, like, share it with your HR, share it with your friends, and I will see you again Monday, Thursday, Monday, Thursday. One more thing, we'll be starting an official or continuing an official YouTube channel of Move to Prague. So you will not be seeing only me here, but on the official channels of Move to Prague, you'll be seeing me and Daria, and we'll be inviting guests. So that will start very soon. And we'll also do a podcast about life in the Czech Republic as a foreigner. And we'll also have some guests there, and we'll be covering all the interesting aspects of living in the Czech Republic, and we'll be answering your questions there as well. So guys, keep an eye for that. Keep an eye out for that. We'll be sharing the news very soon. So I will see you again Monday, Thursday, Monday, Thursday, until the end of the world. Good night, guys. Bye-bye.